getting ready to swap the steering box on my Nova. The original box is totally stock here. It's got a ratio around 14:1, probably a variable ratio box, and it suffers from that pinky steering feeling that's really common to these cars. The new box is made by Sweet Mfg. It's a 700 series Sportsman box with a 12:1 ratio, which is actually 12.7:1 technically, and it has a 235-inch torsion bar. The torsion bar is what determines exactly how much assist you're going to get based on how much force you put into the steering wheel. So it's actually a measurement of the diameter of a rod that's inside of the valve, and if you have a smaller diameter rod in that valve, it will allow the servo to open up more easily and provide assist with less steering input. And if you have a bigger rod, it provides less assist, but the advantage there is that you get more steering feedback. So a 235 is a fairly heavy valve, I think, but I have no experience yet, so we're going to see. Before I put this in, I want to get a baseline, so we'll take the car for a quick spin and see how it does. In the garage, now this is how much assist I've got. I've got a little bit of a loose feeling in the middle, and like pinky, I don't know, it has a little more assist than pinky, but or a little less assist than just pinky steering, but it's still very easy to move around freely here. Let's take a pull out and see what we think here. Sitting on asphalt, there's enough assist that I can turn this easily with one hand. I'm running about 6 degrees of caster in the car. I have fairly narrow front tires, they're 235, and I'm just looking for somewhere where I can exercise the steering a little bit. This box is probably a variable ratio. I measured over 1 degree or 1 steering wheel turn in either direction. I measured about 14:1, which is probably just the average over that range. According to some literature I read, it should vary between roughly 12:1 and about 16:1, something like that. So at the center it's really slow. It's supposed to be slow to make it easier to drive down the freeway and not jerk into a ditch if you're turning too sharply. And then at the edges it gets faster, so that when you're making a really sharp corner in a parking lot or going around a corner that's sharp, you get a little faster response at that edge. The steering. The new box I'm replacing this with is a 12:1, which is technically 12.7:1. And that's just constant throughout the whole range of travel, so it should speed up the steering at the center especially, and then overall give me a faster ratio. This box takes about 2 3/4 turns to go lock to lock. That lock to lock on this car is basically the steering stops. Okay, so you can see going around that corner, it took me almost a full turn, almost a half turn of the steering wheel in one direction to get around there. And I'm hoping that that's a little bit faster, because when I'm in autocross, I'm doing a lot of hand-over-hand action. So steering like this is fine on the street, but in autocross, when you're making a lot of tight corners, one after the other, you want a faster steering ratio. So I'm hoping it goes a little bit faster this box is doing right now. You don't want too fast of a steering ratio, because then if you're cruising down the road and you need to make an abrupt lane change, maybe something pops out in front of you, you don't want to overcorrect and end up in a ditch or end up in somebody else's car. And so, you know, for the street, what I've heard is that around 12 to 1 is about as fast as you want to go. Some people do get used to 10 to 1 and faster ratio boxes and can probably drive them safely going down the road themselves, but then if somebody else gets into your car, they may not be expecting that fast ratio. And I let my wife drive this car every once in a while, so it's got to be something that she can get into safely and cruise around with the kids. It's also got to be a car that I can take my kids to school in and not worry about potentially just overcorrecting and ending up in a ditch or something. I'm really hoping that this new box will give me a little feedback going around corners like this, because right now it just feels very I don't know, very numb. I'm not getting any feedback in the wheel. I can turn and steer everywhere I'm going with just one hand. It's not like I'm on a track or anything right now, but I would still like to get some feedback even driving around town like this. So I think we'll cruise back to the house, get the car in the air, and start working on taking out this old box so we can try out the new one.